Welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we're diving into the heroesmartacademy Godly Learners series. We're specifically looking at a curriculum built for 8th graders, a time when school and friendships can definitely get a bit complicated, right? This lesson zeroes in on what they call the art of active listening and faithful communication. It takes something you might just think of as a standard classroom rule and completely reframes it as a totally essential life and leadership skill. To really ground this lesson, the curriculum kicks off with a quote from James 1:19. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. The text uses this as its ultimate practical handbook. It makes the case that in a world where, let's be honest, everyone just wants to speak first, prioritizing listening can save us from a whole lot of unnecessary anger and confusion. So here's our roadmap for today. We're going to cover the power of listening, hearing versus active listening, strategies for active listening, a real-world listening check, and finally, education, morality, and peace. Let's get right to it. Section 1, the power of listening. The curriculum points out that true listening has some incredibly tangible benefits. It builds much stronger friendships, prevents those annoying misunderstandings, absolutely grows you as both a learner and a leader, and shows immense respect to others. Think of it as a secret ingredient. True listening communicates real value to the speaker, and the text presents it as the key difference between total confusion and clear success, both in school and just in life generally. Moving on to Section 2, hearing versus active listening. The course draws a super clear contrast here. Passive hearing is presented as simply receiving sound. It's just a biological process. Sound waves hit your eardrums and your brain registers noise, kind of like hearing a lawnmower outside. Active listening, on the other hand, is framed as a deliberate, conscious choice. It means actively working to understand, interpret, and respond thoughtfully. You're actively decoding what the other person is actually saying. So what exactly is active listening? Well, it's defined here as giving your full attention to the speaker, showing real engagement, and responding in a way that literally proves you understand them. The curriculum explains that this means physically putting the phone away for sure, but also shutting down that super common urge to just sit there planning your next words while the other person is still talking. All right, Section 3, strategies for active listening. The curriculum outlines a really practical 3-part toolkit to help you prove you're actually processing the information. The steps are ask clarifying questions, use nonverbal cues, and summarize key points. To illustrate that first point, the text paints a picture of a complex science experiment. Imagine leaning in and asking a clarifying question like, so first we mix the chemicals, then heat them? Boom. You've just confirmed a crucial step and probably prevented a massive lab disaster. It's a fantastic, proactive way to ensure accuracy. Let's look at another classroom scenario. The course suggests that confirming project instructions out loud is smart listening in action. By asking a teacher to clarify, maybe saying something like, just to clarify, the 3 parts are the summary, the visual, and the presentation, right? A student proves they are completely dialed in. Plus, it's a great way to avoid silly grading mistakes. The second big strategy emphasizes nonverbal cues. Using a hypothetical student named Sam during some group work, the lesson points out that even if Sam doesn't talk a whole lot, his physical behaviors, like nodding, leaning forward, and maintaining eye contact, signal total 100% engagement to the rest of the group. And the final strategy in our toolkit is summarizing for understanding. By restating a Pierce point in your own words, saying something like, so what you're saying is that the main theme is perseverance, the text notes that you prove you genuinely grasped their meaning. It's a surefire way to make the speaker actually feel heard. Let's jump into Section 4, Real-World Listening Check. At this point in the lesson, the text throws out a really good reflective question. Describe a time you misunderstood someone because you weren't listening actively. What actually happened? It challenges learners to honestly recognize their own past mistakes. Maybe you hurt a friend's feelings or totally bombed a quiz, as the very first step toward getting better. Next up, the material asks, why is it so important to ask clarifying questions after someone gives directions or shares information? The lesson highlights that double-checking those instructions isn't just about getting things right. It's a proactive habit that actively builds trust with teachers, parents, or even your future bosses. Finally, it asks students to mentally recall and list 3 nonverbal behaviors that show someone is listening attentively. This exercise really reinforces the physical side of communication we explored earlier. Actions like nodding, leaning in, making good eye contact, and crucially, keeping those distractions totally out of sight.
Which brings us to Section 5, Education, Morality, and Peace.
Here, the HeroesMart Academy series links active listening to a much broader philosophy. It argues that education without morality will hurt. The curriculum makes the case that just being book smart simply isn't enough. It states that true education has to be guided by a strong moral compass so you don't end up making choices that harm yourself or others.
The lesson then points to Romans 8:6-7, which promises peace of mind to everyone who keeps their mind spiritual. The curriculum uses this truth to anchor a really big idea, that engaging with others attentively and morally cultivates a deep, lasting peace for the learner.
And the curriculum leaves its students with one final, powerful question. Will you choose to just hear, or will you listen, learn, and find peace? It presents a choice for every single interaction you have. Whether or not you follow this specific curriculum, the core challenge is absolutely clear. How might intentionally changing the way you listen transform your daily life? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep learning.